besides that, it is my pleasure today to be able to introduce the Minister, who, as we've already heard, is very dynamic and vibrant.
Because I think as we involve you as citizens in the future of these public policies and initiatives, it's important we understand each other. So our memories are short. In 2002, we had just come through a period where previous government had cut $500 million out of the post-secondary system. Massive divestment of our colleges and universities at a time when they were more needed for jobs and for advancing solutions. So the new round of tuition, the 30% off, applies to students, as the Premier said, front page of the Toronto Star on September 5th, he said this. Talked about the 160% cap. We talked about why it was for dependent students. Dependent students are within 4 years of high school. This is for upper middle class and lower class students economically, because we already have the 50% tuition for people under about 52,000 a year, 50% already. 30% because we have so many families that have 2, 3, and 4, sometimes 5 students in high school, college, and university, and that's calculated against parents' income, and we were seeing a lot of students not being able to continue. So we have moved very aggressively with a $430 million program that is sufficient to close that gap. I want to be very clear. This is not the end of the line. Well, this is the largest increase in student tuition aid, student aid in probably most of our lifetime. It is not it. It is the third major tuition assistance program we have initiated in the last 8 years.
What about the tuition?
We recognize at University of Windsor, we have 1,800 students who have signed up. There are a few thousand other students here at this campus right now who haven't yet gone to a computer to get their $1,600. We know you need it. I need you to go and talk to your colleagues and help get those folks out. At St. Clair College, there's 820 students who have already signed up for the 30% tuition program. We need you to get another 820 out this week. We have 90,000 more students to sign up. And I want to tell you, when students say there's a demand for student aid, that's much more credible if the program sells out overnight. I recognize that independent, mature students. Of 600,000 students, 475,000 undergraduate students now get some form of student aid. And stop calling it 900,000. You're causing problems. Graduate students and PhD students get paid.
Where does it say 900,000?
Some don't. If you're in the humanities and if you're a master's degree, it's kind of tough. But there's a lot of people who get paid to be TAs. I was at U of T for 3 years. I was a fellow. I saw some of my graduate student friends get an engineering. Graduate students have a different deal. We have some particular problems with some of the funding for graduate students. So let's not make the problem so big it can't be solved. I'm a liberal. I like practical solutions.
And he's also
I don't like people who tell you the market can solve every problem, or people on the left who says you have to have a huge public program that costs millions of dollars to solve every problem. I think scale is important. So let's work on those 125,000. Let's start working on 200 independent students.
Isn't the Liberal Party supposedly on the left?
Students and part-time students, of which I was one. It shouldn't take you 7 years to complete your education. You know, that's the reality.
Don't they pretend to be on the left?
So we're going to work
their
on
whole
that.
thing?
But today we're here to announce the largest expansion in tuition aid.
I hope this is making you more brave.
On a government that has invested in the university college system more than any other, and will continue to. That will protect quality and accessibility.
Shit
I think we nailed the accessibility thing. I don't hear anyone saying ever again right now, which we heard for 50 years in Ontario, my kids won't get a seat at the table. Premier McGuinty has expanded the system through tough and through good times. No one ever again should be turned around because there isn't a seat for them. Now we're going to work on the next challenge. No one should ever be turned away from the university or college education because they can't afford it. We've beaten accessibility down. We've made huge efforts on affordability, and we're going to slay that language. I need student associations to put the placards down. I appreciate that you protested yesterday. I want to tell you how important it is to me that we have student activists that keep on raising the issue and took time to make a banner like that. But we now need you to roll up your sleeves and take on the fourth big challenge, which is the students that are still left behind. And if you don't believe that this government is serious about it, compare our record to any other.
Would the Minister like to speak to the cuts to the Ontario Research Fund, which have thrown hundreds of applications for graduate studies into disarray?
Okay, you're going to take questions.
Thank you. I was going to take questions, but First of all, there are no cuts for post-secondary education. I want to be very clear about that. There will be reductions, and there is a 2-year suspension of a program that I used to be minister responsible for. Okay? We are also looking for alternative sources for research for research funds. That money was not a net cut to the budget. That money went into 2 regional economic development funds, one for the Windsor-Essex area, because of job losses here and more severe economic impacts in southwestern Ontario. We transferred money from the General Research Fund for 2 years to put a permanent economic development program in place to create jobs, focused largely on student employment and on people in the auto sector and others who have been displaced. Why? Because for a short period of time, for 2 years, we believed that that was a more important economic priority in this area than general research. I am now working with Minister Duguid and with Teresa to find some other sources for funding, because quite frankly, there is more money in the private sector than there ever has been, and the private sector is investing less in research, and they have to step up to that. So, student aid, yes, we're going to do part-time student aid, we're going to do all of these other things. We can't do all things to all people, so we've asked for your patience in the research community, which is well funded by the federal government to do that. You know what I'd like to fight with you on? You know what I'd like to get CFS and CSA lined up? Why the heck are we putting $10 billion into prisons when we have the lowest crime rate? Why, when there is no one lining up to go to prison, with our tax dollars going to prison? I have 19,000 students.
What does that have to do with anything?
16,000
Prisons. What are we talking about prisons for?
Trying to get into university and college.
We're talking about elephants too. Ask them to put it on elephants.
The federal government found a place on short notice for 90,000 students, not one turned away. I don't see 90,000 people lining up to get into prisons in Ontario. I can't find 50 judges that are telling me that we need more prison space.
Well, why is he talking about prisons?
60% of your tax dollars goes to the federal government.
I don't understand why he's talking about prisons.
Let them give 10% of what we give as a provincial government to higher education. Let them take divert 25% of the money being expanded from prisons and put it into the colleges and universities in these neighborhoods and that. We can win that one. I can't keep raising taxes, but the federal government gets 60% of our tax dollars. Quite frankly, it's time to say that public education is more important than prisons. You know, because your parents don't want to pay more taxes, but they'll certainly support you if you say, build me a university and not a prison. And I think Mr. Harper needs to hear that.
$40 million was cut from the Ontario Research Fund, and it threw all the applications into disarray. Why didn't you work with the graduate students, the faculty members, and the corporate investors who you say we're losing in order to make sure that everyone collaborates together?
The minister has